Shabbat Shalom from Temple Concord. This week we begin the book of Numbers, and in that reading we return from the story of the law giving of Leviticus back into the story of the journey of our people. And so the opening verses describe the census that was taken, an accounting of who all the people were, and then into the geographic distribution of where people were living, the north, the south, the east, the west. And then a little after that, you get to the lines of Aaron and Moses and the priestly lines and the generations within individual families. All of that accounting is a fascinating thing. On the one hand, there's just the flat numbers piece. And it's good to know who you are, and we do censuses here at the temple, and to make sure that we have all of our details in order. That's all important. And knowing where people live is also important. There was a time when our temple had the overwhelming majority of its membership within a 1 or 2 mile radius of the building. That time has long since come and gone. We have members from Oswego in the north to Cortland in the south, from Skaneateles in the west to Casanova in the east, and all points in between. And so today, our geographic imprint is actually an important conversation and an important element that didn't exist a generation or 2 or 3 ago. And then you get into the business of family lines. And this is a fascinating piece that we Jews spend a lot of time with. On the one hand, there's the question of the priestly line. Are you a Kohen or a Levi or a Yisrael? And then there's the family line of, well, what's your family's history? Are you part of this congregation for 2 generations or 6 generations? And is your family connected to this or to that? The Yiddish word is yichus. Do you have yichus? Do you have a connection that goes all the way back? What's so interesting about that is that on the one hand, we Jews take great pride in going back generations. And at the same time, because of where most of us lived and where most of our families came from, we can only go back a few generations. So in my family, I can go back to great-great-grandparents, and that's it. I don't know much beyond who they were. And that tells me something really interesting. On the one hand, it says that we weren't great record keepers, but it probably means we were dirt poor as well. But it also says that lineage isn't the only determining factor. That as a Jewish community, we accept everybody for who they are, regardless of who their parents were. And this is why we're commanded to treat somebody who converts, who chooses to be Jewish, as we would anybody else, because the lineage piece isn't so important. That's not the necessary part. The more important piece is where our Torah portion starts this week. What are you in terms of being a part of the Jewish community? Are you in or out? And so if we follow that model, that we first start with who's in or out, and then we get to where do you live, and then we get to and what's your lineage, then we're on the right track. Because we're starting with the question of, are you a part of our community? Do you believe as we do? Do we share the same values and goals and purposes and beliefs? The rest is all secondary. Where we live doesn't really matter. Who our grandparents or great-grandparents were in the grand scheme of things matters less also. But what matters is what we're doing. And so in a sense, it is how are we acting on those beliefs? Lots of people today say, well, I'm Jewish, but I'm really just spiritual. I'm not so religious. And the answer is, yes, spirituality is important. It's how you feel. But being Jewish is what you do. It's the religion. Theology is the part what you're thinking about, but the doing, the religion, is what we are as Jews. And so to say you're spiritual sort of dismisses all of that heritage. And I think our people say, no. It starts with who's in the community. Are you Jewish, and what do you do with it? That becomes the starting element. Then we get to where do you live, then we get to what's your lineage, then we get to what do you feel and what do you believe, but we start with what do you do, and where are you, and how are you getting there, and are you part of our community or not? And I think that is a really fascinating entry point for us as we build and expand our own community and enhance our own community. I hope you'll be a part of our community as we celebrate Shabbat this weekend. Shabbat service is Friday evening. We'll be at 6 o'clock. We'll be meeting in the Berenstein Chapel. Saturday morning, we have text study at 9, Torah study at 10, and Shabbat morning services at 11. Saturday evening, we'll celebrate Shavuot and confirmation. So we have a confirmation dinner that starts at 6 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we have the confirmation service. Then there will be an oneg afterwards. And then we have our late night study for Shavuot, our Tikkun Leil Shavuot, which will take place probably around 9:30, and will go a few hours until we're done. We have a number of teachers who are going to be there, and it should be a wonderful evening of study and of coming together as community. Sunday morning, we have our Shavuot morning service with Yizkor, which takes place at 11 a.m. That also will be in the Berenstein Chapel. And then the rest of the week is filled with all sorts of usual activities. The following Friday, the 17th, is our congregation's annual meeting, so I urge you to come and join us and be a part of that. We have the meeting, then services, and then dinner catered by the Dinosaur, so it should be a great night for the temple and a great night for your tummy too. For now, though, I want you to look at numbers with me, not in the sense of just counting, but rather in the sense of what do we do with it. So it's one thing to say I'm Jewish. It's another thing to say I'm part of a community. And at Temple Concord, we're working hard to say that I'm a part of the community and here's how I act on my beliefs. Here's what I do, whether it's going to a class or participating in a program or being involved in our food pantry or coming to the film series or the concerts or anything else. It's what I do with those beliefs. It's what I do with that heritage that either I have been born into or I have chosen. That becomes the essential piece. It's how do we do Jewish? And number says first you figure out that piece, then you deal with geography, then you deal with lineage. And I think that we need to focus on that first piece too. What do we do as Jews and how do we make sense of that? Shabbat Shalom for now. I look forward to seeing you at the temple.